Now, L4, there are, L means lumbar. Lumbar is lower back generally. There are 5 L's or lumbar vertebrae. Let's count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. L4 is here. We looked at that scan. It's the L4 level on the left leg. That's the right leg too, but it just depends on what side we're on. On the left leg, in the middle, or excuse me, on the inside, that nerve that exits or actually enters from the lower leg, we're going to come down here, the inside of this lower leg. We have a stimulus there. It sends information up and into that level of the spine. Let's come over here. Here's the L4 level. Here's the L4 nerve root. It comes out, branches out down here, and it supplies not just this area, but this area of the inside of our leg. Now, at each spinal level, 1 through 7, 1 through 12, thoracic 1 through 12, lumbar 1 through 5, and then what we call down here into our sacral area. All the way from here, you see these nerves that exit and enter at every level of the spine. So the map is this. We have a stimulus. It sends information up whatever respective nerve into our spine, where it gets taken to, or into our spinal cord, where it gets taken to our brain and it gets processed. Now, we're going to talk about information going out now. And we're going to specifically talk, we're not going to talk about the organs and stuff like that. That's for another show or two when we talk about the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, or more generally called the autonomic nervous system. It has a lot to do with organ function and other things we'll talk about. We're going to show you this next scan is to demonstrate how different levels of the spine and the nerve signals exiting that level of the spine, coming from the spinal cord and the brain, go to certain muscles to make that muscle move. The only reason it moves, well, you have to have blood and proper sodium and potassium and all that stuff, but the primary reason why it moves is because it gets an electrical stimulus, ultimately from the brain and spinal cord, that tells it to move. Now this next scan, we're going to go down to the middle of the page where it says radial nerve. The muscle is the triceps. We're going to use the triceps muscle as an example. The triceps muscles essentially extend our forearm, and the nerve root levels, where the nerve signals come out of our spinal cord, or at this vertebral or spinal levels, are C6, cervical 6, cervical 7 primarily, and cervical nerve root 8. Now, triceps muscle is the muscle in the back of our arm, and it extends our forearm that way. C6, primarily C7, and C8. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 primarily, and 8. So if it's my right arm, the nerve signals coming out of the brain and spinal cord at those 3 spinal levels go down to this part of our arm where our triceps muscle is to tell it to do this. Now, let's go to the skeleton, the bony aspect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The nerves that come out of this area, let's go over to the left side since he only has one arm. Come out of these areas and primarily at C7 and supply the muscles that lie right on this aspect of our arm that help us or make us do this. So in reality, if we have any issues in our brain, certainly any issues in our spinal cord, it can disrupt the nerve signaling that comes out of that aspect of our spine. But once again, what I want to get across today is we can have tightness, stiffness, misalignment, structural damage, but especially tightness and stiffness of muscles and joints and ligaments and some misalignment at times, but oftentimes just the stiffness and tightness of muscles and joints and ligaments that can disrupt nerve signaling the function coming out to different areas, for instance, down into that triceps muscle. Now, let's go down to the bottom of the page. It says opponens pollicis, and what it does is it flexes and opposes our thumb, and it's C8 and T1. Now, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There is no C8, but there is a C8 nerve root that exits out of here and T1 out of here. It sends information down to our thumb to tell the muscles to do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's a C8 nerve that comes out of here and a T1 nerve that comes out of below it, actually, that goes down to the muscles that help our thumb do something like that. Without smooth and strong enough or balanced electrical signals coming from those areas, it's not going to work as well and you can have symptoms. Now, this next scan, we want to go down into the lower back. And you see in the middle of the page where it says femoral nerve. And then we're going to go to the next column. It says rectus femoris, there are different muscles that are grouped together in a parenthesis, so to speak, or bracket. The quadriceps. It extends the leg at the knee. You can see it says L2, L3, and L4, and L3 and L4 are primary. So, the quadriceps are essentially most of the muscles here in the front of our leg, front of our thigh. Quad, meaning there's 4 of them. They're supplied by nerve signals coming from the lumbar second, and primarily third and fourth levels in our spine. The nerve signals come out of that area, stimulate those muscles to do that, to extend our lower leg. Now, let's go to those spots. Here's L5. I'm going to count backward. L5, here's 4, 3, 2. 2, 3, 4. Nerves come out there, go down to the front of our thigh, tell the muscles to move our lower leg out like that. Down here, here's L5, 4, 3, 2. 2, so there's L2, 3, and 4. Nerves coming out of there, going down to the front of our leg. Now, they go to a lot of other places, but that's the correlation. That's the map. That is the nerve signals coming out of that part of our spine. Now, let's go to this last one here, the tibial nerve, or there's a bracket there and the muscle name of gastrocnemius. I was wondering where they came up with all these names. It seems like there could be a simpler name. But anyhow, the function of that is it plantar flexes our foot. I'll show you what that is here in a minute. And the nerve roots that supply that muscle is S1 and S2. Now, here's S1 down in here coming out, and here's S2 coming out. It's actually down in and around a bony area called our sacrum, right here. Here's the bony aspect of our sacrum. The nerve roots S1 and S2, they exit out of here and exit out of this area right here as well, that go down and supply part of the muscles in the back of our lower leg. And the muscles in the back of our lower leg, they plantar flex our foot or push it down, push our foot and toes down towards the floor. Allows us to stand up on our tiptoes. The main muscles there. So they come out of the very, very lower back, more around the tailbone kind of area, and send those nerve signals to that part of our body to create that muscular response. Now, we talked about nerve signals that go away from the spine. They're called motor nerve signals. And we only talked about those motor nerve signals that go to muscles to make them move. And we talked about if there's any type of irritation along that pathway, it can disrupt how muscles are functioning and reacting. Now, earlier in the show, we talked about how different types of receptors receive a stimulus and send information up a nerve towards the spine, not away, towards the spinal cord, to tell it what's going on and then ultimately tell the brain what's going on so it can respond with that motor response. That's the general process and pathway that occurs. Stimulus from a receptor into our spinal cord, up to our brain. The brain and spinal cord process it. It sends information away to whatever muscle or organ it is going to. And depending on the spinal level, okay? Depending on the spinal level and depending on that ultimate nerve root level and its many hundreds of thousands of branches, that is a main factor on what type of reaction we have or what we feel. Now, I must reference this book, Neuroanatomy Through Clinical Cases by Hal Blumenfeld, MD, PhD. The scans that we saw of the dermatomes where we sense certain aspects of information, and the scans that showed the muscles and the actions and the nerve root levels come out of Dr. Blumenfeld's book. Now, there can be many different things that can create abnormal nerve signaling coming into the spinal cord from the body, and that can affect nerve signaling coming out of the spinal cord to the body. And I want to stay in the periphery, and I'm just going to, some general things. Our diet is very important. What we eat, what we drink, extremely important because of the different chemistry processes that create these types of feelings and directive nerve signals. Sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, certainly different vitamins, minerals, etc. Very, very important. So diet is a very important thing. Taking our supplements to make sure that we cover some bases, to ensure that we're covering some bases, very important thing. But some of the physical aspects that can create an unpleasant feeling. Some of the physical aspects that can decrease the amount of nerve signaling out to structures in our body. Quite frankly, it's just living life, folks. And it doesn't matter what age you are. Certain aspects of anatomy, muscles and ligaments and different tissues such as that, have a great effect. We've talked about the receptors in all of those, have a great effect on how the brain ultimately sends information back out to different body structures. Let's just say to muscles. We must be more balanced muscularly in strength and flexibility. We must be more flexible overall of ligaments and muscles and tendons and other soft tissues in our body. We ideally should be more aligned as well. Because when we're stiffer and tighter, more muscularly imbalanced, and our skeleton is more misaligned because of offsets of neurological integrity and that imbalance of muscle tone, it disrupts those signals. More commonly will disrupt signals coming into the spinal cord, so the brain doesn't get proper information on what's going on out here, so it can't send as good of information back out to our body. And that's something that's really, really, really key to understand, to feel better as we're living, and most likely to help us live longer and feel better while we're living longer. Now, I hope you got that map. We'll see you next week, and we'll talk more about the spinal cord itself and the different pathways that lead to the brain and lead out of the brain. Thank you.